As we pick up the thread of my life, just before I departed Mount Carmel for Egypt, I hasten to remind you that I had already begun the process of youthening my body by disengaging from the collective consciousness that believed in aging and dying. So that I find that really interesting. So one of the ways in the rejuvenation process is that she has to detach herself from everybody else, because everybody else in society believes that we only live to a certain age, that as we're getting older, we're dying, we're getting can't move our bodies the way we used to, we can't get up and down off the ground, we can't do all of this stuff. And it's also really interesting that, so with Fusion Body Studio, if you want to follow us on Instagram, Bryce and I share a lot of shorts and reels that are showing people in their 70s, 80s, 90s, even 100 years of age, running, doing weights, doing the most incredible exercises. And so many of them just look incredible for their age. And I'm like, it is such a myth that we have to age and be sickly and not being able to move and become overweight. It's just all a lie. Hi, and welcome to Empowered Spirit Healing. My name is Paula, and today we are continuing on with episode 2 of our spiritual book club, and our book is Anna, the Grandmother of Jesus. This is such a beautiful story. Claire Hartsong has channeled Anna, the Grandmother of Jesus, and it's really interesting because if we go back in history, there's not really a lot of information about Anna. We get a little bit of information about Mother Mary and a lot of lies about Mary Magdalene. So this is really, really fascinating, and it's just so interesting to hear how they lived in their Essene community, because that's another thing, is that there's a lot of information out there about the Essene community in Qumran, but there's not really a lot about this particular Essene community that lived on Mount Carmel. A lot of information is hidden from there. So listening to the channeling of Anna is really, really fascinating. Now, of course, we know with channeling any kind of spirituality, really, you always have to take things with a grain of salt, because we can misinterpret things, or things are coming through a particular person and we don't always know the purity of everything. But I just love learning about this community. I've also listened to Dolores Cannon has done a book about the Essene community. I think it was called They Walk with Jesus or something along those lines. And that was really fascinating too. I'm really, really intrigued by this Essene community, and I love the way that they live. They just seem to be so well balanced, very nurturing, very caring, very self-sufficient. They kind of choose their leaders. It's more like an elder kind of hierarchy rather than like a government kind of thing. I don't think they even really had money in the community. They needed money, as you'll find out, when they have to travel and things like that. But I think in the community itself, it's more kind of based on everybody has different roles based on their interests and what they're good at. It just seems like a really healthy, lovely way to live. So yeah, anyways, I will continue on. We are up to chapter 3, the Essenes of Jerusalem and Mount Carmel. And you can let me know what you think of the way that they live. So we just started off with how Anna's spirit kind of came into the life of Anna, because there was a young girl called Hannah. She was pregnant, had a bit of a horrible situation happen to her, and then Anna, their souls had agreed for for Anna to become a walk-in. So she walked in, basically their spirits kind of, yeah, I'm not quite sure exactly how it works, but her spirit kind of came in at a particular agreed upon time. And so now we're continuing on after she's had her first baby, and yeah, where she goes from there. So as the years passed and I entered fully into my human journey, I experienced much testing of my soul, during which I occasionally faltered. My steady progress prompted my wise teachers to pass me on to a mystic who resided within the walled city of Jerusalem. My new teacher's name was John. That name will do for now, though in time I knew him by another. He took my now 13-year-old daughter and me under his protective wing. His jovial and devoted wife, Hannah Elizabeth, made space for us in a small storage room located on the roof of their stone dwelling. To be in the clamour of Jerusalem was something of a rude awakening. Yet I relished the opportunity to go deeper into the mysteries of my soul, to awaken, remember, and fulfill my part. What had once been a proud city was now a broken city, its former glory but a fading memory. Having ignored the repeated warnings of Jeremiah the prophet, Jerusalem had been devastated by the Babylonian soldiers of Nebuchadnezzar during the course of 3 successive sieges. The suffering that our people had experienced during those 20 years, from 605 to 585 BC, is beyond description. Many had died, many more were taken into captivity. Others had fled for their lives. Only the poor remained. Such was the situation in Jerusalem when Jeremiah the prophet wrote his book of Lamentations. And such was still the situation in Jerusalem when I arrived on the scene in 583 BC. Now it was 24 years that I remained in Jerusalem. I thrived within the city, even though there was much unrest and violence from time to time. The temple lay in ruins, and the streets strained with the return of those who had fled. Yet I learned how to remain calm and centered within my being, regardless of what my senses perceived was occurring on the outer screen. So that's really interesting, and that's actually something that I'm quite interested in learning more about at the moment, because we are going through so much chaos in the world. And from different people I've listened to, apparently this chaos is going to continue until around 2027. And then I think things might start to kind of settle down after that, hopefully. But I mean, we just don't know what's going to happen. And I feel it's very important that we don't get too caught up. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like to understand what's going on in the world. I have certain people I like to follow and just kind of keep up to date with what's going on. But I also, being an empath and being like, I've struggled with depression and anxiety a lot in the past. And I find when I get too caught up in what is going on in the world, I don't cope very well. So I kind of have to keep up to date with what's going on in the world in very small doses, and then just kind of have a break from all of that. And I need to listen to positive things. Otherwise, I start getting really down and I feel unmotivated, I have no energy, and I struggle to cope. I'm sharing this because if any of you out there feel the same way, I think it's really important that we nurture our mind. We are feeding our mind with what is going to help us to stay in a strong, positive way. Because if, when we get into those negative mindsets and we get depressed about what's going on in the world and feel hopeless and feel angry about what's going on. I mean, of course, we need to feel it's not okay what's going on. But what I mean to say is that if we are staying in a negative vibration, we are feeding the elites. We are giving them exactly what they want. They want us to be separated. They want us to be angry. They want us to be in a negative mindset all the time. And while I think, it's the same with doing healing work and doing shadow work, we need to go into it. We need to understand what's going on. We need to understand what emotions we're feeling. But once we've dealt with it and processed it, whether it's through exercise, through journaling, through talking to somebody, through therapy, or doing different healing modalities. There are so many different ways that we can process our negative emotions in a healthy way. But once they have been processed, we need to let them go and move on, and then keep the positive thoughts going. And one of the ways I like to do that is I like to listen to positive people. Of course, you've got to be careful about not getting into, we don't want to do any spiritual bypassing. That's why I'm saying you need to go into the negative stuff, deal with that, process it in a healthy way. But then after you have done that, don't stay in that negative mindset, because that's not going to get you anywhere. So then we need to move into the positive and try and be in that like 90 to 80% of the day. So I really like listening to people like Louise Hay and Wayne Dyer and Joe Vitale. And I actually really like Lee Harris, he channels his spirit guides. And I really resonate with a lot of what he says. So I find listening to people like that more often than the negative stuff that's going on in the world, then that way we can we can just stay in that positive mindset. It's also interesting in this book because they go, like Anna shares with us a lot of the kind of trainings that she had, a lot of like the initiations she went through and stuff like that, which I find so, so incredibly fascinating. So I'll continue on, but I just wanted to share that with you because there are a lot of sensitive souls out there, a lot of empaths, a lot of people that are very sensitive to what's going on in the world. And I just want you to know that it's okay. There's nothing wrong with you. You're just more sensitive. So that means you just need to apply a little bit more extra protection to yourself. Just put up a shield every day, protect yourself from the negative energies and things that are going on, and just try not to get too caught up in what is going on in the world, and just try and spend a little bit of time each day focusing on what is going right in your life, what you have to be grateful for, because that really helps to keep you in a higher vibration, because that's the only way we're going to get through this, is to be strong physically. So that's why I highly recommend joining Fusion Body Studio, learning how to exercise in a spiritual way rather than just wanting to look good, which is an awesome bonus. We all want to look good too. But that's going to come naturally when you adopt a healthier lifestyle. But doing the exercises physically, releasing the emotions and the toxins out of your body and staying in a positive mindset. And exercise releases so many great endorphins and other healthy hormones into your body. Your mindset is just so much clearer and better after doing exercise. So I'll include some information about Fusion Body Studio if you are interested.
Are you ready to take your healing journey to the next level? At Fusion Body Studio, we believe that spirituality starts in the body, and that exercise is the foundation of true spiritual growth and healing. We take the ancient spiritual teachings of the East and we fuse them with modern day movement classes, so you can experience strength, balance, and transformation, all from the comfort of your own home. Right now, you can get access to a growing library of exercise classes, post-workout meditations, hypnotic recordings, and spiritual workshops. Everything you need to support your body, mind, and spirit. You can start your 7-day free trial today and enjoy 20% off your first 6 months with the code PAULA20 in capital letters. It's time to transform your body and empower your life with Fusion Body Studio, your online fitness boutique.
John was a stonemason by trade and also a scribe and reader of the temple library. He was esteemed by most of his peers with whom he worked because he had a way of smoothing the feathers among the many discordant factions of Jews and Gentiles. John was, for the most part, a very gentle and unassuming individual devoted to God. He could also be unbending about certain principles of the law as he understood the ancient writings, which he shared with the priests and young men who came for schooling and training to become rabbis. He reminded me in some ways of my father, and thus a need was fulfilled by his attention and care of Ariana and me. John worked upon the restoration of the temple library that had been destroyed by the Babylonian conquerors, whose continuing presence was felt as a bed of thorns. He always seemed to have boundless energy, sleeping little, and rarely was he heavy with fatigue. I desired to know his secret. As if knowing my readiness, John began to appear in my dreams. These dreams felt as real as my waking life. He would take my arm and lead me through doors and passages into great halls of learning, where we were white-robed beings of such light-filled countenances that at first it was difficult to comprehend their human features. How wondrous were these encounters! How thankful I was to be with such a master teacher! How grateful I was for the wise ones who first directed my path to Jerusalem. As the weeks and months went by in this manner, I too began to experience that I required little sleep. I would awaken after just a few hours of sound rest. Sitting upright upon my pallet, I felt fully enlivened, my heart beating strongly, my soul's ancient rhythms. I would meditate on the light and sound current charging every cell, and soon John would etherically appear and escort me to one of the many halls of records. Sometimes before I met John, I experienced myself floating up and looking down on my body lying asleep or sitting in meditation. I noticed an elastic-like silver cord attaching me to my body. I was free to go anywhere. You would call my out-of-body experiences astral travel. In the Hall of Records, John would open scrolls and begin to teach me how to decipher the symbols and languages. Thus, my etheric training as a scribe had begun in earnest. My daily chores of helping Hannah Elizabeth with her busy household seemed to pass easily. My meditation upon highly refined and subtle light and sound currents sustained my strength of body. I found little time for socializing. That was all right as far as I was concerned. My desire was for the greater wisdom that was opening up to me. Although there were not many women in my outer life with whom I could share my most intimate thoughts, there were within the inner retreats many females who I came to love. I relished their companionship, even though uninitiated eyes could not see my companions. Some of these I will introduce to you as we continue our walk together, for they are key characters in our unfolding story. Few women I came across in the marketplace or synagogue had access to the learning I was receiving from the great ones. While remaining closely tied to their hearths, most women seemed to be invested in acquiring social graces and status. Frankly, I found their gossip and mundane interests boring and tedious. Even Hannah Elizabeth, though a most caring and gentle soul, could not meet me where I yearned to go. I can totally relate with that because I get pretty bored with just everyday chit chat and I just want to learn. And I've been like that ever since I was young. So socializing has been a little bit of a struggle here and there for me. I mean, I enjoy it and I love people and I love talking to people, but deep and meaningful conversations about all this kind of stuff, I just love it. In those first years, I only found 2 women in all of Jerusalem who carried the same vibrational resonance and desire for the hidden wisdom teachings. With these sisters of the immortal soul, a pact was made to support each other in all manners, as our circumstances would allow. These two courageous women, Ruth and Miriam, would grace my life through many years. Fortunately, the number of such women increased as souls beyond the veil came forth in flesh to play their sacred parts with me. At the age of 16, Ariana married a man called James, and right away was pregnant with my first grandchild. I, of course, was thrilled by the opportunity to prepare her for giving birth. I had mastered midwifery, having been taught by my mother at a young age. During the births of my younger brothers, she had taken me with her to attend other women when their hour came. Because of my disposition, which was naturally maternal, I enjoyed the gathering of wisdom that made the passage of the soul into newborn flesh one of love and welcoming. I assisted the labour through certain sounds or combinations of sounds that would flow through my lips while massaging the mother's great belly, heaving with contractions. So that's really interesting that she said that she makes certain sounds and combinations of sounds to assist with the delivery. It seems that we seem to be learning that sound and sound healing, sound frequencies, different tones seem to play a really big part. I mean, that is what is apparently is what formed all of our great megaliths and the pyramids and things like that. So I just find sound in terms of healing and things like that absolutely fascinating. Watching the energies with clairvoyant vision, how the colours and thought forms would shift with her breath, I advised the mother in breathing and sounding the names of the one God. I also called forth angels to be present throughout her labour. I had learned the way of herbs for relieving pain, infection, swelling, and the bringing in of milk. In Jerusalem, my two friends and I kept gardens for such medicinal purposes. We walked out into the fields and pasture lands during the appropriate seasons to gather and replenish our herbal supplies. So it was when I delivered the first of my many grandchildren. To Oriana would be born 8 children altogether. Wow. Because of my calming presence, midwifery skills, and herbal knowledge, both the poor and the wealthy sought me out. Welcoming the souls who would take part in Earth's drama warmed my heart. Thus, I was engaged in my outer life, and together with the learning in the night from the secret masters of the brother sisterhood of light, my days were full to overflowing. Now that I had a means of livelihood, I took residence in an upper room near the home of Oriana and James in the Valley Kidron near the old city of David. What a delight to be close to my grandchildren as they grew over the years. For those who showed promise and the desire for esoteric learning, I created a school where they could learn at my knee. Quick were they to learn, and later they followed me to the sands of Egypt. Those whose interests lay in other walks of life came and gathered around me to be entertained and to gain some preparation for life's many lessons. All of my grandchildren enjoyed my stories and our walks within the beauty of nature's halls of wisdom. By this time, John had become fully established within the library of the temple, and his stonemasonry no longer took up as much of his attention. When possible, he would bring me into rooms hidden away where he and a group of master masons who belonged to a secret order and had access to subterranean passageways which led to ancient catacombs and archives. Not often in the physical did I go into the vaults, yet enough to establish in my mind and heart a knowing that I would do whatever was necessary to learn how to read the ancient texts and share the hidden knowledge. Strong was my desire to bring the foundation of enlightenment to each one who chose to quench their thirsty soul. Many years before I met him, John had joined a sect of Judaism called the Essenes. These, the most enlightened and uncorrupted of Judaic Hebrews, trace their origins back to the ancient mystery schools of Moses and Akhenaten and beyond. Derived from the root word es, which means being, and ein, which means source. Essenes means source of being or holy one. We addressed one another as son or daughter of the sun, as those who kept the way of healing we were also known. Every Sabbath and high day, members of the Essene Brotherhood would come to John's house to pray, read, and discuss matters of spirit. Hannah Elizabeth graciously attended to feeding us and then would retire to the hearth to mend, embroider, or rock a child. She would tune in when there was a topic of interest. Otherwise, she felt her place was to provide a household of order and serenity. Our communications were rich and full, providing me with a family in the outer world who took on the luminescence that I witnessed in the inner planes. Of this community, my two women friends, Miriam and Ruth, were also faithful disciples. So began my walk with the faithful, the chosen, or the elect, as some called themselves, within the Essene brother sisterhood. I continued in the fellowship of the Essenes throughout the remainder of my long days. James, Oriana's husband, was one of the brothers who hailed from Mount Carmel. The stories he told about Carmel quickened my spirit, and I felt called to go to the mount where Samuel and Elijah had taught, there to establish myself as a full initiate within the ancient Essenes mysteries. So it was that, with Oriana, James, and 5 of my 8 grandchildren, I left Jerusalem in 559 BC to begin a new life. Later, Miriam and Ruth also joined the Mount Carmel community. My soul was at peace, and I looked to the future with a glad heart. Man, I'm telling you, if I was around at that time, I was packing up and going to Mount Carmel too. I don't know what it is, but something is just like, that's where I want to be. I wonder if it's still about today, but we just don't know. Just as you heard your soul's call, and we have come together to enter upon this journey to know thyself more deeply as a living Christ, so did I respond to my heart's call to enter into the Mount Carmel Mystery School. Carmel, as we called our monastery, is one of the most ancient mystery schools that survived numerous rises of civilization. It has preserved the lineage that holds the Grail codes of ascension and incarnation through which the Divine Mother brings forth Christ consciousness during cosmic, solar, and planetary cycles. Now I shall share my memories of Mount Carmel by the sea with you, my friend. In joyful gratitude, I walked the beauteous hillside of Carmel, gathering the sweet lilies of the field and collecting a variety of herbs with which I prepared medicines for our monastic community who kept the way of the teacher of righteousness. For we strived with great discipline and dedication to fulfill the power of God within us through the rightful use of energy by acting upon God's words with forthrightness and compassion, thereby bringing an aura of peace to a war-ravaged land. My years at Carmel accumulated to 39 before I went to Egypt to undertake advanced initiations and specialized training. During that time, I took my probationary initiations under the tutelage of Solomon and Eloise. These were a couple dedicated completely to the Creator. They entreated me to calmness when my heart raced with fear for my people whenever troops of soldiers came to the mount. They instilled forgiveness and compassion in my breast when my savage memories of my youth tore through my mind. They opened my book of life and assisted me to remember the law of one, the one God I am. They trained my mind, body, and soul to be aligned to the greater good of our community. So it was with great love that I dwelled and learned within my beloved Carmel. There were, at that time, relatively few couples compared to single individuals who chose to be celibate. I was one of the sisters who chose to hold the life force within my bowels and lift it through the fires of my soul into the wholeness of my greater being. Whether married or single, we sanctified our sexual energy and looked upon this great force with reverence and awe. We studied the forces of nature and called them the agents by which we could know God as both Father and Mother, Spirit and Matter. We were attuned to the spirit of plants, minerals, fire, water, and air. These were called angels, to whom we prayed for grace each night and day. The cyclic seasons were honored, as was Mother Earth and Father Sky, through songs, dances, and feasts. We bowed to the law of life and partook of those laws that replenished and sustained our physical expression of spirit. Through much training in the alchemy of transmutation, we transformed our animal natures. We uplifted our senses to perceive beyond the physical veils of lust, anger, and dualistic needs. We participated in ritual washings and cleansings of our inner and outer minds and bodies. There was much understanding of herbs, simple raw foods, and practices of horticulture that sustained us throughout the seasons. While I was not engaged in transcribing records at the library, assisting with the ill at the infirmary, or practicing midwifery, I would range over the hillsides gathering herbs and seeds. These I planted in our community gardens. Each who lived within our compound laboured for the benefit of all according to each one's disposition and talents. Often to my delight, a flock of youngsters would gather around me to hear stories of the prophets, our people's history and folklore. Among these children were my grandchildren and great-grandchildren. These precious moments I treasured and stored up in my heart. How I loved Carmel and the life we created there. As I matured in wisdom, rituals and ceremonies were taught to me and to others as we advanced through the degrees of our mystery school initiations. When we were sufficiently prepared, these practices facilitated the activation of psychic abilities and the rejuvenation of our bodies. These rituals, if I were to describe them for you now, would most likely be misunderstood. Therefore, I shall prepare the way so that you may in due time receive according to your allowing. The process for rejuvenation are very ancient practices, and it was in Carmel that I first became aware of these inner secrets for sustaining my body. Truly, I developed the skills and disciplined my mind to recreate my body every month. Although my first 60 years reflected typical aging of mind and body, once I began to regenerate myself, I looked and felt like a 35-year-old woman. However, there were times over the following centuries when my appearance varied according to the requirements of the situations in which I found myself. Even as Solomon and Eloise taught me, the way of the teacher of the righteousness, the rightful use of energy, so shall I share with you that you may accomplish your purpose for coming to earth. There are a variety of purposes, to be sure, yet it is the great work of the soul that we are destined to finish when all is brought together. Therefore, we shall open the gates that lead to the other one who knows the truth beyond the shadows. When you have come to the understanding that all paths coverage within the heart of the one, the purpose of this writing shall be fulfilled. So I now leave you to contemplate the feelings in your heart. Is the great work of the soul that for which you have come? If so, then our story shall unfold according to divine decree, that you may receive the energies of transmutation and ascension. You shall be directed from within, for I would have you receive according to your capacity to know Mother, Father, God as your infinite source of supply. Your journey is yours to create. Divine are your choices, everyone. I am here to comfort you during your passage of birth. Even as I hold all life, I represent the mother of mothers. In some ways, you are always my child, yet more so at this stage of self-empowerment, I call you my beloved friend. Together we shall merge at the ending of time. Are you ready to remember who you really are and be finished at last with the drama that has held you apart from your true self? I am. If so, read on. Be prepared to exchange your old identity for one far vaster. And those of you who have long trod the way of the one, I welcome your countenance and offer mine as your mirror. Greater effulgence is the gift I give to all who persevere through my many words and enigmatic phrases. We have now completed the first cycle from where we started, when we first began the story of Anna of Mount Carmel. Yet other circles await us as we walk the terrain of my life until all is gathered up and brought to completion. Next to come is the story of my sojourn in Egypt, where I became a high priestess of Isis and Hathor, which prepared me for my work in the Essene and Magdalene orders at Mount Carmel. So it's getting exciting. Okay, so now we're going to read Chapter 4, Anna's Initiations in Egypt. As we pick up the thread of my life, just before I departed Mount Carmel for Egypt, I hasten to remind you that I had already begun the process of youthening my body by disengaging from the collective consciousness that believed in aging and dying. So that I find that really interesting. So one of the ways in the rejuvenation process is that she has to detach herself from everybody else, because everybody else in society believes that we only live to a certain age, that as we're getting older, we're dying, we're getting can't move our bodies the way we used to, we can't get up and down off the ground, we can't do all of this stuff. And it's also really interesting that, so with Fusion Body Studio, if you want to follow us on Instagram, Bryce and I share a lot of shorts and reels that are showing people in their 70s, 80s, 90s, even 100 years of age, running, doing weights, doing the most incredible exercises. And so many of them just look incredible for their age. And I'm like, it is such a myth that we have to age and be sickly and not being able to move and become overweight. It's just all a lie to keep us sick and to keep us on medicine and dependent on the system. Whereas, yeah, I just don't buy it. I don't buy it anymore. I used to, of course, because I didn't know any different. But when you start to learn about things, about healing, and you learn about how exercise is actually the foundation of spirituality, and how if you want to stay young and healthy, exercise is literally the secret. Of course, Anna shares other stuff as well. But seriously, if you want to age well, start exercising. Either join us at Fusion Body Studio, and we share so much information. Bryce is an incredible teacher, and she has so much knowledge about how the body works and all of the ancient spirituality that she has learned in India, and she fuses that together with modern movement. And it's just fascinating. And now we also have her partner, Todd, who's joining us as well. He is a senior authorized Ashtanga yoga teacher, and he's amazing. They are both amazing, and I feel so blessed and so lucky to have them in my life and to do Fusion Body Studio with them. I also include my quantum healing learnings, and I've also done hypnotic recordings on there. I've also done meditations on there. We also talk about how important it is to do post-workout meditations, because after you've done the workout, so as Bryce likes to say, when you're doing the workout, you're destroying the muscles, you're breaking them down. And then after you've done that, then they're going to heal and they're going to repair and they're going to grow stronger. That's just how muscle building works. And so we like to end our exercises with a post-workout meditation. And Bryce and I have both made quite a few. We've got a nice little library of different ones that you can do after you've done your workout. And it's just a beautiful way. They're only like 5 to 10 minutes long. And it's just a beautiful way to just finish up the exercise. But the key is that is where the healing starts to happen. So not only is it a nice, relaxing way to finish up your exercise, but that's where the healing begins. And by doing a post-workout meditation after your exercise, you're taking your healing to the next level. So yeah, if you're interested, please join us. But if you're not interested, I don't care, just exercise. Start exercising, just start walking every single day. If that's all that your body can handle right now, just do it. Just exercise, just walk for 30 minutes every day. And it might take a few weeks to really start to notice a difference, but you will notice a difference and it is so worth it. Anyways, I'm going to stop rambling and I'm going to continue on. I had participated in most of the initiations into self-mastery that the Mount Carmel Mystery School could offer me. My incessant desire to expand my awareness and innate capacities, as well as to know union with God, in God, while still retaining my physical body. There had been ones who had gone to Egypt, and upon their return to Carmel, shared their increased wisdom, motivating me to leave and trust my destiny to the gods and goddesses who had prepared Moses. So it was that I arranged to travel by foot, cart, and camel with several of my Essene brothers, my daughter Ariana, and some of my descendants. We joined a caravan of traders and together with other immigrants made our way by land to the Nile's delta. Our destination was on a temple complex mostly in ruin around which many Hebrews still remained since the Exodus. They lived in clustered village homes made of sandstone and mud bricks. You know this area by its Greek name, Heliopolis. Very little of ancient On remains in your day because it lies buried below the Cairo airport and is engulfed by Cairo's sprawling metropolis. Oh, how fascinating. During the next 303 years of my long life, I lived and worked in the ancient underground city of Tat, whose subterranean passages stretch all the way from the Great Pyramid to the seaside port you now call Alexandria. I also had access to a portion of the Greater Labyrinth passages that are a part of the Inner Earth network. Some have called Agartha. To be sure, my friend, this is a truth that soon may be uncovered in your day. I hope so. I'd like to know more about Agartha. And even as I can see your generation, so shall you see the hidden events in my experiences long ago as we continue our walk together. I invite you to join me now as one who is prepared to labor within the vaults of time. I gladly do this because I have said before, I would have you succeed in your journey through this world of illusion and know the blessings of true vision as you behold your eternal self. My words in this chapter will refer to terms perhaps unfamiliar and esoteric. Many of these you'll find briefly defined in the glossary. See pages 290 to 95, and most will be expanded upon as we continue my story. More than anything else, it was the remnant people remaining close to the earth plane through millennia of time, who drew me forth to ancient Egypt, known as the Brother Sisterhood of White Light. They have carried Shekinah, Sophia's, the Divine Mother, the intelligence behind all things, torch of wisdom that reveals the Logos/Gnosis, the word of creation, hidden face. These are ones that remember from life to life through the veils of flesh, their origins in that life eternal far beyond Earth's gravitational pull. There were my teachers who cultivated my soul and awakened my mind to remember the law of one. The Ascended Masters, mighty Thoth. I just want to quickly add in that if you would like to learn more about the law of one, I highly recommend you watch Bryce's partner, Todd. He's just started up a new YouTube channel called The Confused Wanderer, and he's going through teachings of the law of one. He's explaining it in layman's terms, which is perfect for somebody like me. And he's also going through some teachings from the Cassiopeians. So that's really fascinating. If you want to check out his channel, I'll include his links below. The Ascended Masters, mighty Thoth and his consort Seshat, embodied in form, were my most revered teachers. Seriphus Bey, resplendent of countenance, was like a diamond of purity and power. There were also others, male and female, who towered before me in their bodies of radiant light and had mastered the physical plane. Ancient ones whose names do not matter, some recorded in history, and many others who chose anonymity. With these I mingled both night and day. Then there were my spiritually impoverished brothers and sisters who walked as if asleep on the surface sands. The humble of the land were also my teachers, as I occasionally walked among them, my mantle of compassion touching those who would be free. Having come to Egypt, called here by the request of my soul and the brother sisterhood of light, I was as one ancient in the ways of wisdom, yet inexperienced in the flesh of my current incarnation. Focusing my energies, I pressed through the rigorous of much training and discipline, which prepared me to move freely through the labyrinth passages of our underground city. I was able to pass as a thief in the night through the outer temples of the city of On and the surrounding plateau, unseen by those who would take me hostage. So it was that I learned to live and work in a secret world, hidden from the eyes of those who would deride and cast into darkness the sacred truths of the one God. Knowledge of passwords, frequency signatures, secret handshakes, symbols, and emblems were required to move freely within this cloistered world. These occult signals had come from a time so ancient that most had forgotten their actual origins. I became privy to such knowledge because of my lineage, because of my intense desire to know, understand, and practice esoteric wisdom. And most of all, I came because of the undeniable commitment within my heart to accomplish a great work that was hidden from my mind, but felt as a fountain of living water, sustaining my soul. Once I had adjusted to this new way of life, I labored both day and night as one who required little sleep or the light of the solar sun. Within the hidden vaults where I labored were treasured scrolls of papyrus and parchment, and tablets of metal and stone. Some of the tablets were of gold, copper, bronze, and electrum. Some were of unknown elements said to have been brought by peoples who carried them to earth from the stars. It was those treasures of wisdom whose mystery I desired to unravel the most intrigued and stirred my soul. I pursued the wisdom teachings as if they were fleeting birds, butterflies, and rainbows. These most ancient works held a magnetic attraction etched by the hands unknown yet known, which drew me irresistibly to Egypt and her libraries hidden beneath veils of stone. The focus of my attention was upon the translation of records of the stars and of Earth's most ancient peoples in the Egyptian, Greek, Hebrew, and Aramaic languages. Other scribes had the task of bringing their languages, such as Sanskrit and Sumerian, to papyri, parchment, stones of clay, and thin metal tablets and scrolls. Our records were preserved in archival vaults. Most of my work was carefully etched into a stylus into sheets of damp clay before being brought to the attention of a council of scholars, who would then come to a consensus regarding the accuracy of my translation. When all was in agreement, I then transferred the letters and hieroglyphic patterns to documents of more fragile yet more transportable paper. Many labourers were employed in the making of papyri from the lotus plants that grew along the Nile. After weaving the dried, pressed fibres into lengthy sheets, one who was a member of our brother sisterhood carefully stacked the papyrus in a corner of my cell within the dormitory of the scribes. Here, below the sands of the desert, I took of the records hidden from the profane and made copies that could be taken back to Mount Carmel, the mystery school of the Essenes. It sounds like it would have been a lot of work to do all of that, but so worth it for the knowledge that was on them. There was light sufficient for my seeing supplied by oil lamps and shining stones, which were anointed by those empowered Atlantean priests and priestesses who knew how to bring down the light of the sun god Ra. These were my teachers who still retained the secrets of light, sound, and colour. That's what I want to learn more about. Through the use of concentrated thought and frequencies of sound, they directed the inner eye to its focused purpose. With charged hands, they held amplifying rods and staffs as extensions of their minds and bodies to carve and lift mighty stones into their perfect places. It was in this way that ancient monuments such as the Sphinx and Great Pyramid were created, which your archaeologists attribute to slave labour. However, after many of the telekinetic powers had been lost, indeed many slaves were used to build pharaohs' palaces, tombs, and temples. There was adequate air in my underground chamber, which was supplied and circulated through duct tunnels ingeniously in stone from portals above to vast caverns below. In our initiations, we remembered how to breathe in such a way as to access the God force permeating all creation, thus not depending only on oxygen to maintain our being. Underground streams and aqueducts filled cisterns and quenched our thirst. Food was simple, supplied by those who tilled diluvial soil of the fertile Nile. There were those of the brother sisterhood who husbanded gardens and flocks. They took delight in serving those of us who requested ourselves away from the burning sun and the Nile's fresh breezes, which scattered rays of light into shimmering diamonds upon the flowing blue waters above. Thus our basic requirements were met. Every other night I arose and went forth to the outer temples through doorways that were opened by the power of my voice. This I did to meet with the companions and perform rituals known as the high alchemy of Horus and the magic of Isis, until the sun returned at dawn. The purpose of our coming together was to keep our bodies strong and to celebrate the cyclic seasons of earth, moon, stars, and sun. Through meditations upon the sun and moon, we balanced our internal polarities and illumined our minds and bodies. We performed mystical practices that took us into the archetypal garden of paradise, in which the tree of life was revealed. Here we learned how to erect and climb the ladder of light in order to harvest eternal golden fruit. In this way, and because of our eternal illumination, we were able to live below the earth's surface in relative comfort and security. Our physical lives, if we chose, could extend into many centuries so that we could render great service during one lifetime. Eventually, I joined the very ancient Brotherhood of Tat, which gathered its members on the nights of every full and new moon. Also, during the solar cycles and galactic portal days, we came together from many lands throughout the world. Some of us were immortal, having lived upon the earth for thousands of years. Some were, as I, freshly returned, growing in the remembrance of our way, which illustrates Osiris's resurrection, Isis's immaculate conception, and Horus's archetypal journey into full enlightenment. We share our wisdom with those of earthly flesh who desired to awaken and who prove by their progress that they could withstand the rigors of sustained discipline. We brought ourselves into circles, mingling with upright stones that carried the inscriptions and frequencies of those worlds and stars beyond Earth's present season. We brought our records, data we had gathered as we traversed the Earth, and shared in our meetings the nature of humanity's evolution, conditions, concerns, and resolutions. In some of your mystical literature, you have heard of the dweller who resides deep within the halls of Amente. This one was our primary spokesperson, being neither male nor female. It was indeed an androgynous energy field that facilitated interdimensional communication. There were chambers of initiation where we would go from time to meet with the dweller and remember who we were through space and time. Then we would go forth to fulfill our various assignments and duties. Some arose and returned to Lightcraft to observe and influence the affairs of Earth as decreed by universal law. Some walked among the populace of the lands of Earth as seemingly ordinary men and women. Others stayed obscure, hidden below. Such a one was I until I had completed certain initiations which would make me capable of playing my part by moving freely among the surface tribes of Earth to fulfill my destined part. There was much to learn and much to remember. Fortunately, there were the records others and myself had kept during earlier eras, and there was always the true self, who holds the mysteries whole and pure within the inner temple. I learned how to access this self through stilling my mind and opening the 7 seals or rings of power. These are known as the subtle energy centers yogis call chakras. These were methods for erecting the eternal etheric rod of light, raising life force through the spine's 3 channels, and circulating cosmic energy through the physical body's staff of life, or endocrine glands. I remembered who I was before the rising of Lemuria and Atlantis, when I served the cup, the Holy Grail. And I remembered my promise to remain on earth until they are all lifted up. Once I had gained a greater mastery of physical laws, I began taking my advanced initiations within the many temples that had been created by the ancient ones along the lower and upper Nile, some oases and mountains on either side. I travelled deep into Nubia and beheld the spectacle of Ramesses' tomb and the monument to my lineage you call Hathor. As I enacted the lion-headed Sekhmet's and Hathor's ancient creation rituals, I sang the Great Mother's praise, chanted mantras, and danced with timbrel frame, drum, and sistrum. The Divine Mother's rights had become corrupted and her voice suppressed by the politics of priests and pharaohs who held to and transmuted lust, greed, and blind patriarchal dogma. Nevertheless, there were those of us who kept the way pure and untainted, though to be sure, even though we were pressed to remember and pass on the energies in complete fidelity. Having access to reality that is beyond the human senses, we could see those who were invisible to untrained eyes. Yet it must be acknowledged that in our fervor to preserve the power of internal high alchemy through the darkened ages, we inadvertently created initiatory processes that hardened into secret rituals, cryptic codes, and elitist hierarchies, which made direct experience a most circuitous route. Many lost their way and confused the outer practices with that for which they sought. Few fully quenched their thirst by drinking the living waters poured directly from the goddess's internal revelatory cup. 40 years after my arrival in Egypt, I completed my advanced initiations and began serving the Great Mother as a priestess of Isis, Hathor, and Sekhmet, in addition to continuing my work as a scribe. I developed the capacity to be conscious of many different dimensions and realities through astral travel, conscious out-of-body travel, bilocation, splitting and projecting one's conscious awareness to another location, timeline, or dimension, and teleportation, destructuring one's body into a more subtle form and projecting it to another location where it is physically reassembled. Whoa. Just imagine doing that. Through Isis's mysteries of resurrection, known as the rite of sepulchre, I continued to regenerate the cells of my body as one of immortal youth. As the years went by, I became known as the one who excelled in the mysterious arts and sciences of high alchemy. Although I demonstrated wondrous spiritual powers, psychic gifts were not my primary focus. They were the means to an end and the natural byproduct of my devoted discipline and love, by which I sought to serve the Creator and uplift the whole of life. Throughout my journey, I became intimate with the full spectrum of the Great Mother's many faces and her creative powers. The attributes of the goddess were expressed through me all my days until my sojourn with as the one called Anna was finished. My soul has served her grace through all of my incarnations. I became known as a high priestess of the Great Mother and received many initiates whom I taught how to cultivate the energies for which they were prepared to incarnate. I assessed their learning and capacity to hold high-frequency light patterns coherent within their bodies, minds, and lives. I was, as it were, a psycho-spiritual counselor. Eventually, my work took the form of assisting initiates to prepare themselves for the resurrection of sepulchre, in which they overcame the illusion of death. Thus, I labored within the temple mystery schools, assisting everyone, whether male or female, who chose to transmute his or her mortal soul's base dross into the gold of immortal enlightenment. Thus I labored within the temple mystery schools, assisting everyone, whether male or female, who chose to transmute his or her mortal soul's base dross into the gold of immortal enlightenment. I share my Egyptian experiences with you as a way to assist your own evolution and empowerment. Your life on planet Earth is your initiatory temple. Christ consciousness is expanding exponentially every day. My dear friend, have you noticed that time is accelerating or that extreme polarities are becoming more obvious? Absolutely. Perhaps you're experiencing or know people who are having extraordinary metaphysical, beyond physical experiences. Have you seen in the media how science is validating realms of consciousness that just a few years ago were not considered possible or even relevant? Once one begins to have the experiences of extrasensory phenomena, as I did, the mystery dissolves and the realization comes that superconsciousness is the birthright of humanity. You do not need me in order to accomplish your heart's deepest desire, to attain the enlightenment of Christ. However, as a catalyst through reflection and compassion, I am here to assist you in a greater awareness of ultimate freedom and union. Because of the lofty nature of what I have been and will be sharing with you about my initiatory accomplishments, you might think of me as much more advanced than you and that the great work is beyond your capabilities. But I'm here to reassure you that you would not be taking this journey with me and others if you were not already well prepared. The essence of what we will accomplish together is more a remembrance than a learning of something new. What I ask of you is to allow your awareness of the planetary awakening that is presently underway to increase day by day. With every step you take, the seen and unseen realms will support the comforting and encouraging realization that you are not alone. To help you with this, I encourage you to think of me as being very much like yourself. Indeed, if you were to see me in real life, I would seem so ordinary that you might miss the chance of walking with me if you were looking for someone you thought to be spiritual. My job is to take you to the mountaintop where I will show you expanded vistas of your potential. Then our real journey begins when we come down from the spiritual mountain and enter the valley of ordinariness and personal application. My beloved friend, please understand that those of us who demonstrate Christ consciousness support your choices to increase in wisdom so that you may also be of service to others as a model through your presence and actions. Well, I'm going to leave it there because the chapters are quite long. So I'm just going to read the 2 chapters and that's about an hour. Wow. I mean, wow. Just, I don't know about you guys, but hearing about her studies and how she lived in Egypt, the initiations, learning and becoming a high priestess of Hathor and Isis and Sekhmet. I was just trying to remember. Just wow. I'm loving this book so much, and I really hope you are too. If you are enjoying this, please subscribe, please share this with people, because I feel like this book has some really, really important knowledge that we need as a part of what the world is going through right now. I believe it's really, really important. So if you feel called to, please comment below. Please tell me what you think so far about her journey. I mean, so yeah, you'll end up finding out later on how long she extends her life. I believe it was around just under 600 years. So it's absolutely incredible. And I totally believe it. I absolutely believe it. And I believe that there are people out there right now that know these secrets, that know these, the things that you need to do. But I believe that they would be hidden. They would be living in a kind of quiet place like Mount Carmel or, secret places in Egypt and things like that. They would know this knowledge and they would be passing it down from generation to generation. And it kind of makes sense why you need to extend your life, because it sounds like in order to do this, this is not just for everyday people. It would take immense discipline, very strict eating, very strict with meditations, and I'm assuming exercise. It would be very much keeping your body healthy and fit, and your thoughts would have to be very clean and clear and pure. So, and being celibate as well, because there is, because when you use that life force and put it back into your body instead of having it come out, then you're rejuvenating your cells. So yeah, it's absolutely fascinating. I would love to know what you think, and I will continue with chapter 5 next time. Thank you for joining me. Bye.